Hi everyone, I'm Glenn and welcome to this new series I'm doing called SASS, so you're new here. Thanks to a comment on one of my other videos by OMFG It's Tsunami Hustle, they wanted me to do a quick tutorial on the @use and @forward rule. They then wanted me to go on to structuring files, or in this case discussing the 7 into 1 concept. So strap yourselves in. So the first thing we're going to discuss is the 7 into 1 rule. Now the idea of the 7 into 1 rules is you have 7 or more folders all containing your SASS files, and these all eventually get compiled down to just one CSS file. Now don't shoot me here, but I'm actually going to say stop, don't do that. The idea of having just one CSS file is widely outdated. The introduction of HTTP2 meant it actually works out better to pass over multiple smaller files. This means that you can then modularize your CSS and make your website smaller and load quicker. I've actually been redesigning my own website, just done a quick static version here, just forgive the stock images and the incompleteness. But as you can see, I've got my my header, navigation, I've got a nice hero component at the top here, got the 3 stats cards here, just an image with some side text, some content in my footer at the bottom, as you said, navigation. And if you just jump over to the About Us page, so just some nice content at the top, that same module that you saw earlier with the text and the image, and again but the other way around, and footer again at the bottom. And finally let's just jump over to the Contact Us page. So on this it's just form stylings and things like that, that's all fine. So as you can imagine, the CSS for all of this content will be quite large, but I don't actually need a lot of it on these other pages. On the Contact Us page here, all I need is the form stylings. On the About Us page, it's literally just this module here I'm using. It's only the home page that I'm actually going to have this hero image and the stat cards. So modularizing just means here's the CSS I actually need, so just load that, keep my website small and make it load faster. So if I just quickly jump over to the HTML on that, so as you can see, just some standard header stuff, color themes, pre-fold stuff, any other elements that are pre-fold, so in this case my hero image. As I scroll down, I've got my header, my main hero content there, and as I go to my next component, as you can see, I've got a link in the HTML body. Now that's actually perfectly valid HTML, it's fine to do that. What you're actually doing here is telling the browser, here's the important stuff that you need to load, so that blocks the rendering, and then here the rest of the stuff that you can't see, you can actually load as the page is being built. So only start loading this once we've gone past the hero image and everything. Again, when I get down to my next one here, I've got the components on one side, again the stars for that are just before, and when I go right down to the bottom, as you can see, just for my footer, again I've got my styles loaded for that there just before it. When I go over to the About Us page, so the only module I actually care about here is just that one content box pattern, so that's the only one I'm loading in. And on the Contact Us page, all I need here is the form styling, so that's all I've loaded. So it just allows the websites to be small and load quicker. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is all great stuff for the website, but I'm actually developing a SASS library. Well, the same thing sort of still stands. There's no harm in modularizing your component. If you've got this big SASS library that does styles for buttons and lists, there's no harm in allowing these to be accessed individually. There is people that will just say, okay, I just want the list styling, so just load that. But most people, they will just take the whole thing and just consume that. But there's no harm in supporting both of them, really, is there? But looping background, obviously I've got nothing against the 7 aspect of the 7 into 1. Definitely structure your folders and files. Just means that when you come to tweak that one component, you know exactly where it is. My issue is that just compiling down into one. Just don't need to do it anymore. So the next rule I'm going to talk about is the @import rule. So this is the old way that you used to bring components into your files. The @import rule had a lot of limitations. For one thing, it made everything you brought in, all the variables, global. So it meant that any SASS libraries couldn't actually share the variable names. So you ended up with libraries having ridiculously wild variable names just to make sure that they was unique to their to their library. And yeah, there are a few other limitations as well. So in modern SASS, definitely use the @use and @forward rule. Now, shall we get into actually talking about those? Let's do it. Now, let's talk about the @use rule. This is the rule you use when you want to bring a module in and use the components of that within the file you're currently working on. Obviously, different file, if you're using the same module in different files, you will need to bring that in on each individual file. So let's just quickly show you the first example. So this is the @use rule in use. So as you can see, it's written with @use, and then you put the path to the module in quotes. It can be double quotes or single quotes, doesn't matter. And as I'm working on CSS here, I've finished off with a colon. Obviously, you don't need that if you're working in SASS. But so as you can see here, SASS actually has some built-in modules. So the path to those modules are SASS, colon, and then the module itself. In this case, I've used the math and the color. So using the math module, what I'm going to be consuming here is an absolute function, a divide function, and a round function. And what I've done is, because it's the math module, I need to use a math namespace, link back to those later. Then a full stop, and then you put the variable or the mixin that you're using. In this case, the mixin absolute. So my class is here just quickly. Obviously, what I'm doing is I've just created a class with absolute function, creates this class, and make sure that the number is absolute. So in this case, it's going to turn -2 into a +2 and ensure it's displayed in pixels. Again, I've got a class with rounding, and it has to do some work here because rounding is only done to 1 decimal place. So we times by our exponential and then divide after doing the round, and again make sure it's displayed in pixels. So in this case here, I've got my class with rounding. As I'm not defining a precision, it's going to automatically do it to 1 decimal place. So in this one here, it's going to become 2.6 pixels. I've also used the color module. So in this case, I'm just using the adjust mixin. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the black color and I'm going to make it 20% lighter. And as you can see, just output that. It's done that absolute, turn that -2 into a 2. It's done that 2.6 rounding, and it's made the black color 20% lighter, so #333333. Now, I've just shown you how you can bring in SASS's built-in modules, but obviously you can declare your own and bring those in as well. So that's what I've done just here. So I've done the @use rule, and again, single double quotes, doesn't matter. And then I've just done the path to my file. So in this case, I've gone up a folder, I'm jumping into the base folder and then finding the reset file. So just coming over here, I've gone up a folder to my styles and then looking for the base folder, and then I'm looking in that for a reset file. But as you can see there, the file starts with an underscore. Now the way SASS finds modules is first it looks for the file and then looks for the various extensions, so .sass, .scss, and also .css. I'll loop back to that. And then if it can't find it with that, it'll then do the same search, but this time put in an underscore before it. And finally, if it still can't find the file, it will treat it as a folder and then look for an index file within that folder, again with and without the underscore, which is actually what I've done with my abstracts here. As you can see, I've just gone up a folder and gone into the abstracts file. So gone from prefold up a folder into abstracts. As it's a folder, it's then looking for the index file, and obviously it's finding that in there, just some little forward rules in there for you. So yeah, that's how things are found. Now, as I said earlier, SASS actually allows you to also load in CSS modules. So it allows you to load in these CSS files and allows you to extend them, work on the classes within there. And so as you can see, I've done just here, I'm looking for a brighter color. And in this case, what I'm actually finding is this CSS file just here. If I just pull up that file, it's just got that brighter color that we had earlier. So I'm loading that component, that file. I'm creating my own class, and then I'm extending the brighter color that we know is in there. So when this compiles, it's took that brighter color, added our extra class, and output it all their valid CSS. Now I'm going to start talking about namespaces. So as I mentioned earlier, when you pull in a module, you just need to use its namespace in order to use the file. And what it tends to do is use the last component of the @use rule. So as my file here is called vars, when I come to use that anything within that file, I need to prefix it with vars. So as you can see here, I've gone vars dot and then my public color. Now what you can actually do is you can actually rename namespaces. So if I was to go as v, now all I need to do is just put v. So if you've gone for a ridiculously long file name, then it just allows you to use a shorter prefix in order to bring that in. What you can also do is actually completely negate the namespace. When it's a file that you've worked on and you know there's going to be no collisions with any other variables, you can literally just go as star. And that star just now means that you don't need to do any prefixing whatsoever. Now I'm going to quickly touch on different kinds of configuration. So when you're working on a file that you plan to bring in later, you can actually make members private. So if I just quickly pull up my file here, as you can see, I've got my public color there, and I've actually got a private better color. And the thing that actually makes it private is this little bit at the beginning here. So putting an underscore or a dash before a mixin or a variable actually marks that as private. So if I was to now try and use this private color and save, I'm getting an error to say that it's an undefined variable because it's hidden and now it cannot actually access it. Another great thing you can do with the configuration is actually allow some of your variables to be configurable themselves. So I've just got this button class here. Let's just pretend it's a library. And what I've done is I've defined the border radius and font size. And as you can see on the end of each of these here, I've got this extra little bit with the exclamation mark default. So now when I come to actually consume that mixin, what I'm going to do is I can actually go and add this extra bit you can just hear with the with. So I'm actually saying, so use the button thing. You can change the namespace as well if you want to, and then say, but I want my border to be 2 pixels outset, my border radius to be 2 pixels, and my font size to be 1.5 rem instead of 1.15. So now when I save that, as you can see, even though the variable I used within the file itself, it's actually still allowed me to apply that configuration. So it's consumed the file, applied my configuration before then working on the rest of the file. So now both my button and my other button both share the same items, as you can see. But the configuration doesn't stop there. You can actually tweak variables once you've brought them in. So as you can see, I'm bringing in my color base component here with the namespace of my, and then I've just got an extra class here with override. So if we just quickly jump into the color base, as you can see, I'm declaring the color pink. And if I jump over to my override file, I'm then using the color base as base and then redeclaring that variable to the color magenta. So now I've used my color base and then used my override. When I compile this, it's actually going to take the color from the override and output the magenta. So that's it from the @use rule. Shall we quickly jump over now to the @forward rule? So now let's jump into the last segment of this video, the @forward rule. And it works very similar to the @use rule, but with a few key differences. So just quickly go over that. Obviously, when it comes to the @forward rule, what you're actually saying is, rather than taking these files and allowing me to use them in the file below, what you're actually saying is, okay, consume this file, but pass it on to the next one, the one that's going to use me. But if there are instances where you want to both use and forward a component, you will have to do both the @use and the @forward rule. The first aspect of the @forward rule I'm going to talk about is namespaces and how they differ from the @use rule. So just here I've got the same the button library that I was creating earlier, and then this is the output from that. So as you can see, I'm forwarding the button and I'm also using the button because I've got this extra class just in here. So what you do when you're forwarding and tweaking the namespace is you do it in the same way of going as, but what you're actually going to be doing with tweaking the namespace on the @forward rule is actually renaming the variables and the mixings within that. So again, let's just say you had a button and a list component and they had the same variable names within there. What this allows you to do is just prefix them. So in this case, I could actually just go button dash and then a star. So what you're saying is that my border radius and font size, if I use those, all need to be prefixed with button dash now in order to use them. So if I just save that, and then I've just got this class here that's using that. So now what I'm actually going to have to do is tweak these to go button dash and button dash, and save that, and perfectly valid SASS. We have another familiar sounding topic, configuration. So you can actually take the configuration of the @forward rule slightly further. So what you can actually say is, I actually want to hide a specific component. So let's just say, in this case, the border. Just save that. Now if I went to use that and save, as you can see, as I've hidden that variable, it's marking it as an undefined variable. Another great thing you can do with the configuration is allow it to be extended even further. So what I can do here is I can actually say with my border radius, and then in this case I'm going to decide that my border radius is going to be 50%, and I'm going to add the exclamation mark default. So what I'm saying here is that I am redeclaring this border radius, and I'm changing its output from the original 5 pixels to 50%. Now when I go to actually use the border radius, and let's just say I want that to be 15 pixels. So what it's doing is allowing it to be configured here and then here with the default. And then I'm also, because I'm bringing that in, it allows me to do it here and declare it as 15 pixels. And once I save that, as you can see, it's done the 15 pixels right from the start. So no matter where you're using this configurable variable, it allows it to be done right from the very start of the chain. So that's it, my little tutorial on structuring, @use and the @forward rule. I do hope you found this video useful. Thank you very much for watching, and also thank you to OMFG at Tsunami Hustle for making the recommendation. If you'd like to see me do a video on something else, please drop in a comment. I'll be more than happy to take a look. And while you're interacting with the video, why not drop a like and subscribe? It'll mean the absolute world to me. But that's it from me for now. Take care, see you in the next video.